Professor Granić, you've published a book and you're going to talk to us about that in the setting of what you've just seen. How long is your presentation likely to be before you come to questions and answers?
25, 30 minutes altogether. It's 15 minutes, what you want.
Providing not more than 30 minutes and nearer 25, that will be terrific. Professor Granić, the floor is yours, and many thanks.
Thank you, dear Jeffrey. Dear colleagues, dear friends, last year, leading Croatian daily journal, Večernji List, published my book, Diplomatic Store, on Croatian version. 6 months later, in October last year, published English version of the book. And as you can see in my CV, I was Deputy Prime Minister of the Croatian government from the August the 1st until 1st of June 1993. From the June 1st of June 1993 until 27 of January 2000, I was Deputy Prime Minister and the Foreign Minister and the Chief Negotiator in the name of Croatia for the peace in Bosnia and Herzegovina. But politics and diplomacy is not my first career. My first career was medical. I was medical doctor, full professor in medicine, diabetes, chief of the leading university clinic for diabetes on this part of Europe, WHO Collaborative Center. During my medical career, I was in education, Harvard Medical School, Joslin Clinic, Munich University, WHO consultant for Asia, India, Burma, Bangladesh, Thailand, China, guest professor in the United States, and gave the lecture on many United States and Canada, Toronto universities. Practically until the 1988, when I was guest professor in the United States, and when I returned, I included in the democratic movement as a member of the Constitutional Committee, Alternative Constitutional Committee. After the first free election, I became the first post-communist dean of the Medical Faculty University of Zagreb, and I planned medical career, university career, didn't plan to be in the politics. What happened this year, 1990? After the first free election, during this summer, President Tudjman and Slovenian President Kučan proposed the resolution of the Yugoslav crisis to establish the flexible modern confederation. Milosevic refused. On the beginning of 1991, started the negotiations between the presidents of the former Yugoslav republics. After 2 months, it was easy to see that it would be nothing with these negotiations between Slobodan Milosevic wanted only one modern federation of Great Serbia, nothing more, nothing less, no any compromise. President Tudjman organized the referendum for the independence in May 1991, and the Croatian citizen plebiscitary supported more than 94%. On the 25th of June 1991, Croatian parliament adopted the resolution for the independence. At this time, we had no any significant, any major international support because the United States were concentrated on Middle East, storm operation Middle East. European Union was not so good organized to prevent the activities of Slobodan Milošević. And practically, after our proclamation together with Slovenia of independence, Milošević with GNA started with the military activities. On the August the 1st, my first post was in the government, Deputy Prime Minister and Deputy Chief of the Crisis Committee, responsible for science, education, medicine, social welfare, trade unions, culture. But after 15 days, it was easy in the government of the national unity. My main problem was displaced person. Every day, many people from the crisis region was coming in other part of Croatia, and I established the Office for the Refugees. Technical support gave me UN, UNHCR. And after the bomb in the Zagreb, on the 7th of October 1991, Croatian Parliament adopted the resolution and broke any contact with the federal government. And during this night, I was nominated for the chief negotiator with the former Yugoslav army. And after 2 months, on the 8th of December 1991, I signed final agreement. These negotiations organize European monitoring mission, and that was the first precondition for the European Union. Because during the famous night, 17 December 1991 in Luxembourg, on the meeting of Minister of Foreign Affairs of the European Union, they decided that they would give the international recognition, or that they would internationally recognize Croatia with some preconditions. That was the first. Second was ceasefire agreement. Third was negotiate to accept the Vance plan to coming UN troops. President Tudjman and me negotiated. And the third one is and fourth one was that the Croatian parliament adopt constitutional act for the protection of the minority, Serbian minority, naturally in the first place, and positive statement of the European monitoring mission. After all, and we realized all these preconditions, and on the 15th of January 1992, European Union recognized Croatia as independent states. After that, I took care about especially displaced person, 700,000. After that, Croatia supported independence of Bosnia and Herzegovina. Bosnia president after the referendum become the independent state, but Milošević continued the aggression on Bosnia and Herzegovina through Karadzic, Mladic, and others, what is very well known. And after that happened tragic situation, the conflict between the Croats and the Muslims. And when I became the foreign minister on the 1st of June 1993, and deputy prime minister, naturally, 80% of my time, I was working 16, 17, 18 hours per day. 80% was connected with the situation in Bosnia and Herzegovina. And for me, it was easy to see that we must stop the war between the first Croats and the Bosniaks, and after that on the whole territory of Bosnia and Herzegovina. During my first month on the position of foreign minister, first happened that New York Times published that Croats had detention camps, Veleš football stadium. I didn't know about that. And these camps, detention camps, introduced Milosevic, Karadzic, Mladic, and others. What was a very important part of the Hague trials. But when I heard, I immediately informed the president, and he gave me open hands that I used all my influence that the Bosnian Croats closed these camps. And I realized in 7-10 days, this idea, all the people who were detention, we offer the possibility that they go in the hotels on the Adriatic coast on the same situation during the July. I closed second detention camps directly. Additionally, I organized immediately the meeting, I think on the 7th of July 1990, between the Croats and the representatives of the Croatian Republic of Herzegovina and government of Bosnia and Herzegovina, Army of Bosnia and Herzegovina, and HVO in Makarska, and with shuttle diplomacy that they signed memorandum for the free movement of the convoys and to release all the detainees. During this summer, with Haris Silagić, Prime Minister of Bosnia and Herzegovina, we negotiated 7 days how to stop the war between the Croats and the Muslims. And President Tudjman and Izetbegović on the 14th of September signed so-called Geneva Agreement. During November, I visited Sarajevo and signed so-called Sarajevo Declaration, how to stop the war between the Croats and the Muslims and the Bosniaks. When all peace negotiations failed, Kutliro Plan, Vance-Owen Plan, Owen-Stoltenberg Plan, because Vance-Owen Plan didn't accept Serbian side, Stoltenberg Plan didn't accept the Bosnian side. On the beginning of 1994, together with Alois Mok, organized a meeting between all sides, tried to continue negotiations and find a solution. That was the meeting between the Owen, Stoltenberg, United States, and Alois Mok, and Bosniak and Croat side in Bosnia and the Republic of Croatia, but without success. Additionally, on the 10 and 11, organized a meeting with the help of Klaus Kinkelin, Bad Godesberg State Residency, together between the President Tudjman, Izetbegović, NATO was present, and the United States, Anthony Lake and Holbrooke and many others, without success. And what happened after that? One night, I think it was 17th of January, in Hilton Hotel, a special representative of President Clinton, Charles Rendeman, and me, and our ambassador in Geneva, Mr. Zhuzhu, had a dinner, 5 hours dinner, and I proposed the model how to stop the war between the Croats and the Muslims and to establish the Federation of Bosnia and Herzegovina. 5 hours negotiation. After that, we had a duty. Mine was that the President Tudjman accept. Americans accepted that they would speak with the Bosniak side and President Clinton. After 2 days, all sides accepted the model. We had one meeting, additionally, one meeting on the closed meeting on the airport of Frankfurt. And 2 days before the Washington negotiations, President Tudjman proposed me that I visit all the capitals in Europe in 2 days, but we didn't know at this time when would start the Washington negotiations. And in 1 day, I visited 4 countries. 11 o'clock, Kinkel in Germany, 2:30 lunch with Andrata, Minister of Foreign Affairs of Italy, 5:30 with Jean-Louis Thuram in Holy See, and 9 p.m. in Geneva with the ambassadors, and that I explained the Croatian position for the peace in Bosnia and Herzegovina. Day after, I was in London with Malcolm Rifkin, and during just after our meeting, called me Secretary Christopher and proposed immediately to come in Washington. I told no, I will come tomorrow. He told me Haris Iragic is in Washington. Okay, I must speak with the President Tudjman. When I returned about 12 p.m. Then, and I spoke 2.5 hours with the President Tudjman. And I asked President Tudjman, are there any your obligations concerning my negotiations with Haris Silajic and the representative of Bosnian Croats in Washington? President Tudjman told me, no. President, I will repeat my question. Any written form, any that you promised something concerning Milosevic? He told me, Mate, no any kind of information, any kind. We discussed about everything. We discussed how to resolve the problem. That was before my mandate of the foreign minister in Soko, in Karađorđevo, Tikveš, in some other 2 or 3 meetings. President Tudjman, I was not present on the meetings before my duty of the foreign minister. And conclusion, President Tudjman told me, Mate, you have open hands for negotiation with the Bosniak side. Open hands. Okay, President, I will accept. I returned to Zagreb at 2:30. In 7 a.m. I was in the plane for Frankfurt, Washington, and 7 days negotiations. And during these 7 days, I practically spoke with my president only 10-15 minutes one time, no more, with the prime minister, no. I accepted that I have open hands in negotiations. After 7 days, I think on the 1st of June, we finished the negotiations. And when we finished the negotiations, we decided that I would present it to President Tudjman, Haris Silajic, President Izetbegovic, and Secretary Christopher and Charles Redman, President Clinton. And I spoke with the President Tudjman just 10-15 minutes, and he told me, are you ready, Mate, to sign? I told, I will sign. I am ready to sign. That was all. President Clinton told President Tudjman and told President Tudjman, congratulate President Tudjman. negotiations between Haris Silajic and President Izetbegovic and Secretary Christopher, President Izetbegovic and President Clinton. Duration was about 4 or 5 hours, and at 5 o'clock we signed preliminary Washington agreement. That was one my story. Concerning Dayton agreement, Croatia rebuilt international credibility after when we signed the Washington agreement. This year, 1994, we signed so-called economic agreement with the local Serbs, and we accepted negotiations with about the Z4 plan, what was not acceptable for us, but we accepted negotiations and negotiated with the representative of the international community, chair, first American ambassador and the Russian ambassador, German ambassador in Croatia. But when on the beginning of 1995, when president of so-called self-proclaimed Republika Srpska Krajina country, when he refused to accept in his hand plan of Z4, we knew very well that they are not ready to accept any kind of peaceful reintegration Croatian territory. We knew about that. We informed the United States, and I was personally in touch with Secretary Christopher practically every week, and Klaus Kinkel more than 2-3 times per day, per month, per week. And what happened? A story about Srebrenica, what he had a chance to see. On the 10th of July 1995, I organized a visit of diplomatic corps to Dubrovnik on the opening ceremony of the Dubrovnik Summer Festival. 5 o'clock afternoon, I spoke with Yasushi Akashi, representative of UN for Bosnia and Herzegovina and former Yugoslavia. And he told me that he got the information from his headquarters that the situation deteriorated in Srebrenica. And he immediately took a mobile phone call with Milosevic. Milosevic told, no, nothing special. That's attack from one side, nothing would happen. Day after and some days after, happened the biggest genocide in Europe after Second World War. After that, it was easy to see that the peaceful reintegration, our 1/3 of our territory would be not possible. But we proposed through Stoltenberg or Mr. Stoltenberg, one small negotiations in Geneva with the local Serbs. They refused, and that was the time when we decided for the military operation Storm for deliberation our territory. And second day of the Storm operation, I was invited in Geneva with the representatives of European Union, NATO, Javier Solana, Vandenbroek, Carl Bildt. They spoke with me, is it possible to stop the military operation? I told no, we can discuss only about the humanitarian situation. And they didn't make any kind of pressure on me. We finished in 4 days. And naturally, after that happened some wrong things. But I would like to tell you that what I strongly condemn and my government strongly condemn, and everything was prepared for the Dayton negotiations. Dayton negotiations happened after the NATO operations. Additionally, NATO operations in Bosnia and Herzegovina. After our operation, our army together on the basis of the split agreement, what signed President Tuđman Izetbegović on the 22nd, that was after the Srebrenica tragedy, in Split on this basis. Practically Croatian army was 22 kilometers near Banja Luka. And I very good remember that on the 14th of October 1995, Secretary Christopher told me, Mate, you must stop, because if you liberate Banja Luka and the Posavina, 350,000 Serbs would come to Serbia, and the situation in Serbia would be deteriorated. And I told you I would inform the President, naturally Tuđman, and Secretary Christopher, and Richard Holbrooke called President Tuđman. He accepted the suggestion from United States. And after that, everything was prepared for the Dayton negotiations. First 2 days we finished agreement, later on called Erdut agreement for the peaceful negotiations of Croatian Eastern Slavonia, and that was the most successful UN operation, most successful military operation. Third day agreement about Mostar, what I, in the name of Croatian side, negotiated, and framework agreement, and we finished. And the last problem was delineation, what was very good presented in the film, That's of Yugoslavia, what you had the chance to see. And during this night, when I refused to accept the proposal, what Hari Silagić, Richard Holbrooke, and Milosevic negotiated the whole day. And when Hari Silagić very good negotiated concerning the Sarajevo, and when I refused, day after, at 3 p.m. came to me Richard Holbrooke and told, are there any chance for the agreement? I think everything is on the table. It is the chance. Please, Mate, proposed in 1 hour. Would you like to give the last proposal? We gave the last proposal. And after that, President Clinton told President Tuđman. And about 5:30, after that, practical after discussion between President Tuđman and Clinton, was Dayton Accord on the table, including Brčko with international arbitrage. And after that, peacefully reintegrated Eastern Slavonia, and once more, and the last, I personally negotiate for the return the Serbs in Croatia with international community, and we finished negotiations. I had in my government, I have at this moment many opposites, but my position was very strong, and finally President Tuđman supported me, and in April 1998 we signed the agreement for the return the Serbs in Croatia, the refugees Serbs in Croatia. That's
Professor Granić, thank you very much indeed for that clear exposition. Everybody, I believe Professor Granić has some time to answer questions now, but won't be able to stay with us that long because he has another commitment. So we will postpone any coffee break we might have had, if that's all right with you, Professor Granić. We'd love you to stay all morning, but we understand your commitments. And anybody who's got a question, nobody's written anything on the chat board. That doesn't matter. I think, Holly, you put your hand up.
I beg your pardon?
No, it's all right. I thought somebody. So has anybody got a question?
Yeah, I have a question.
Okay.
Right, who is that?
It's Sapan here.
Sapan, very well, Sapan. Ask your question. You haven't introduced yourself, so you better explain. And also, we don't have a picture of you, just in a sentence, who you are, so that Professor Granić knows.
Sure. Professor Granić, I am training to be a barrister in the UK, and I'm currently completing my legal training.
Thank you. And your question is, please?
My question is, so I was watching the documentary, the fall of Yugoslavia last night, which you feature in the last episode. And what I wanted to know was that when you were in the negotiating room at Dayton, how much does principle versus pragmatism matter in the negotiating room, and how much does American pressure matter? So I'm asking you, what sorts of decisions are you making when you're deciding, do we give up this piece of territory, do we concede that town, etc.?
Thank you.
We spent 22 days in Dayton. President Tuđman was 12 days, 3 times came and returned in Croatia, altogether 12 days. I was deputy chief of our delegation, and practically and informally I chaired the negotiations in the name of Croatian side. We started in Dayton. First 2 days, we asked Americans delegation that we first finish agreement about peaceful integration the Croatian occupied territory, last Croatian occupied territory, Eastern Slavonia. Americans accepted, and these 2 days we finished, and in Slavonia we signed this agreement, and that was the first success of the Dayton negotiations. Second was we finished negotiation about how to establish Mostar, agreement about the Mostar and constitution of Mostar. And we finished after 3-4 days. After that, we negotiated about how to establish functioning and constitutionally Bosnia and Herzegovina. We had a very strong group of international lawyers. My main advisor was Ivan Šimonović, my deputy. He was on Yale University, Assistant Secretary General of UN, and now our ambassador UN, Minister of Justice of Croatia, and many excellent lawyers I had. And model was shuttle diplomacy. We negotiated with Americans, all sides with Americans, and if it is plenary, if session, if it is necessary, but a lot of bilateral meetings, practically shuttle diplomacy was crucial. And main problem was delineation, but we knew that the contact group on the 14th of June 1994, 14 decided that the dissolution would be 51 Federation, 49 Republika Srpska. That was something what was not for the discussion, not for the discussion. But how it would go, delineation, that was matter of discussion. And during this time, there were a lot of anecdotes and atmosphere. American delegation tried to build the good atmosphere for the negotiations. The tennis court, dinner, but very hard work, practically the whole day, every day, whole day.
Thanks very much.
Thank you. Any next question before I'm going to try and call Nena in, although she's on a telephone?
I have one short question, if you want.
Yes, please, Amma.
I want to ask the professor, having in mind that I came from Kosovo and we are on negotiation with Serbia for many years, it will be possible without international pressure or without international willing to have any peace between Croatia, Serbia, and the Muslims in Bosnia. So it's always the solution to have international pressure. So I think it's very hard for us in Balkan to sit and negotiate and make a solution. So do you agree that we need always international pressure to find solutions?
I tried to give the answers through my short explanation. Main problem was Slobodan Milošević, because first idea of Slobodan Milošević was modern federation or Great Serbia, the whole former Yugoslavia. After that, he was ready practically he changed the position in summer 1991. Practically when after the negotiations, he didn't have interest for Slovenia. After that, he wanted major part of Croatia, so-called Virovitica, Karlovac, Karlobag line, and plus all other part of Yugoslavia. And after the recognition of Croatia from UN, and after that United States and Russian Federation and others, in Bosnia, first idea was whole Bosnia. After that, major part of Bosnia and Herzegovina. And that was the problem. Tragic war between the Croats and the Muslims gave in favor, naturally, that was something very good for the Milošević, Mladić and others. And I understood that first thing what I must do as a foreign minister is stop the war between the Croats and the Bosniaks. When the United States accepted this model, it was much more easy to work on this model.
So I think possibly Amma was also asking the question in general, in this kind of negotiation, is it essential to have an international presence? Was that part of your concern, Amma?
Yes.
Yeah. Without organizer, United States, European Union had not enough power to organize this negotiation.
That's very interesting.
United States, nothing.
Before we come to the next question or so, I think for those of you who haven't really perhaps picked this up, this agreement, the Dayton Agreement, is the last major peace agreement in Europe, and whatever its long-term effects, it's the most significant one in the territory of which Europeans are a part. And of the important players, to use that awful word you saw on the film, Mate Granić and Christopher Hill and Silajic are the only ones who are available to give you first-hand experience. So you're in a very particular position of privilege. And indeed, I don't know if the professor knows this, that we're going to put your contribution with your permission on the website, and we're going to archive it for others to view in future years. So it really is extremely valuable. I have one or two questions, but is there any other questions here from the room? I think Carol had a question, and also then Adam and Arif. Carol.
Dr. Granić, do you think with the benefit of hindsight and looking at the frozen situation in Bosnia, that it was a mistake to stop moving forward to Banja Luka, despite the fact that there would have been many refugees? The second question was, do you think that the 51-49 division was a fair one?
First answer, what was very important to defeat it, Milosevic. Without that, he was not ready to discuss, to accept negotiations without strong military success. But in one moment, United States leadership, President Clinton, Secretary Christopher, Holbrooke, decided that it is the proper moment for negotiations, that the Milosevic would accept the negotiations. That was the reason why they didn't stop us. Concerning the 51-49, that was decision of the representatives of contact group for Bosnia and Herzegovina, all leading countries, United States, Russian Federation, Germany, Great Britain, French, in Geneva. I was there with Secretary Christopher. They told us that was not decision of the representatives from all sides in Bosnia and Herzegovina and Croatia. No, that was decision of contact group. We accepted.
Adam?
Professor Granić, thank you very much. I do have two small questions. Firstly, you specified that your negotiations with President Tudjman, you concluded that you had pretty much free rein to negotiate on behalf of Croatia. How did that make you feel? How did the pressure sort of impact your decision making when having to negotiate for the entire country? And secondly, in those circumstances where it's clearly working long hours every single day into the night, was it at all possible to consider long-term implications of the agreement, or was it purely a focus on providing some sort of short-term solution as then and there?
Concerning the first question, I was medical doctor. I was chief of the university clinic. I was very pragmatic person. And that was quite normal, that I am absolutely free in my decision on the clinic. That was what I used in negotiations. Practically, at this moment, I had more responsibility practically than any foreign ministers in Europe concerning negotiation, and I used. That was the reason why we practically split declaration when President Izetbegovic and Tudjman came and signed split negotiations, the split declaration. On the basis of split declaration, after 4 days, we helped Bosnia and Herzegovina. We helped in liberation about more than 20% of the territory of Bosnia and Herzegovina. That was my idea. One my co-worker helped me, and I show President Tudjman and President Izetbegovic declaration when they come in Split, not before. They had a chance 10 minutes to see. That was the reason now is practically impossible. That was the reason why we had success in many different things to took the responsibility during the war or close detention camps. That was more dangerous than many people, and dangerous not only for the enemy, dangerous from your side, but practically when I decided to be Deputy Prime Minister and Foreign Minister with a great responsibility, that's the job in which the risk is very high, but success can be. And I am very happy. On the promotion of this book came everything who is the whole leadership of Croatia, Madam President at the time, Prime Minister, so whole government, diplomatic corps, war cabinet during the all leaders of the army, police, more than 600 people. Why? Because there were no one comment public, nobody discuss with me about any sentence, you know, because any sentence, no one, because why? The history, for the history, that's for me was very important for the history. Without anything, no more, no less, just history. What happened? And some of our mistakes, naturally.
Professor Granić, how much more time of your time have we? Because I see questions are queuing up. Do we have a few more minutes or a little more of your time? Yes. People are so urgent, they're putting their hands up. It's all right, I haven't forgotten you, but as faculty, more than I may favor the others over you just briefly. Can I just ask one question? And I also want Lena to come in. You spoke of a telephone conversation between Akashi for the UN and Milosevic on Friday, the 10th of, I suppose it was a Friday, the 10th of July, the opening day of the Dubrovnik Festival, an event at which, when we were in Dubrovnik in these classes, we were always able to attend. Were you aware at any time that despite Milosevic saying no change, there had already been a meeting between him, Mladic, and Carl Bildt in Belgrade, where it was possible that the green light had been given to Mladic to go ahead with the taking of Srebrenica?
First of all, 5 p.m. Witness is my wife, Yasushi Akashi, and me. Mm-hmm. On the terrace of Argentina Hotel. In one moment, somebody calls Yasushi Akashi, and he spoke about 5 minutes. After that, told us that situation deteriorated in Srebrenica. Headquarters of Yakashi called him and told. And he told I would immediately call Milosevic. And he spoke with Milosevic. I was 1 meter.
Yes, I'm not doubting that at all. Did you know that there had already been a meeting where Mladic might have been told, go ahead with taking Srebrenica?
I didn't know at this moment, but I am absolutely sure, 100%, that Milosevic was in touch with Mladic, Karadzic, and everything was fully coordinated.
Thank you.
Fully coordinated. And I told Mr. Akashi that you must go, probably you must go immediately to return to Zagreb. But I didn't know the situation, but my perception was that situation is bad, but I didn't know about the situation. But my perception and experience was that, and we didn't, but after some days, we didn't know how huge is massacre. We didn't know, but we got the information, something very wrong happened.
Thank you very much.
And that was the reason why, after Srebrenica, that was the reason why I organized a meeting with President Tudjman, Izetbegovic in Split. And I spoke, that was my initiative. I called President Izetbegovic and told President Tudjman, President Izetbegovic, want to see you. Are you ready to come? Yes, Matt, I am ready to come. My proposal is Split. Yeah, I would come. I called President Tudjman and told President Izetbegovic would like to see you.
Yes.
Okay. And I organized the meeting and prepared the declaration.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Very briefly, Arif.
Thank you, Professor Granić, for a very enlightening talk. I had just two related questions. In terms of Annex 4 to Dayton, which is the Bosnian constitution, to your knowledge, did the Croatian and Serbian delegations have any role in drafting that? And is there a particular reason why Serbia and Croatia were not guarantors to that section? Because they are guarantors to two other annexes. And of course, the Bosnian constitution is not very conventional.
Okay, that's fine for that question. Did you follow the question, Professor Granić?
Okay, quickly. The strongest negotiations about how to establish Federation of Bosnia and Herzegovina happened in Washington when Haris Silajic and me discussed 2 days. 2 days, what is Federation of Bosnia and Herzegovina, unitarian or two people and all others are sovereign? Croats in Bosnia, they have no third entity, but they are sovereign constituent people. That's main. And naturally, what we wanted to preserve the situation that all three peoples, from the historic reasons, are constituent sovereign people, and concerning the human rights, concerning the all other civil rights, all other rights, every people are the same rights, naturally, but three people are sovereign. Naturally, Dayton Agreement, through many decisions of the High Representative, changed and deteriorated the position concerning sovereignty of Croats. But basic, for example, now 2 times member of the presidency of Bosnia and Herzegovina elected Bosniaks, what was not negotiated in Dayton. Not because it's quite normal that the Croats represent in the presidency what is protection for the sovereignty of the people elect the Croats. Practically, my view now is all three people must have the same rights independent, sovereign, European-oriented Bosnia and Herzegovina, European integrated. That's my view of the future of Bosnia.
Arif, if you have another question, can you type it? We have 2 questions from participants, and that is from Lorena and Faradin. I'm then going to ask Naina to contribute and to say thank you to the professor. But if anybody's got written questions, we'll try and integrate them. Lorena.
Yeah, hello. I'm Lorena Sigirovaca and I come from Kosovo. I just have a quick question. I mean, in general, in what way has the Dayton Agreement affected the Kosovo case or problem back at the time? Or if I can sort of say, in what way it affected the Rambouillet Agreement? Or maybe if the Dayton Agreement wouldn't have happened back at the time, how would then it would have affected Kosovo case? Is there any kind of direct or indirect correlation between the two?
I'm sure that it is possible with more activities, not only in Brussels, absolutely in Brussels, but much more presence and on the highest level from United States is possible to find agreement. Absolutely is possible that the Serbia finally recognize Kosovo as an independent state. It's possible to find which much more efforts from United States. Without that, nothing.
Faradin.
Thank you, Jeff. Professor Granić, you mentioned that without US support in achieving an agreement, it cannot be possible with the support of the EU. Is this because the US approach is most pragmatical way rather than EU approach, or what do you think? Maybe because of the EU states, they do have their own problems, or what is your opinion based on your experience on this issue? Thank you.
Good question. During the 90s, United States was a leader of the democratic world concerning, not only concerning economy, democracy, protection of the human rights, security in the world. Last 10 years, many things happened. Many things happened concerning the role of United States, the role of Russian Federation, the role of China. When President Trump told America first is not only in economy. Many things change today that, from my point of view, for the security of the whole region, for security of Europe, for the future of protection, the human rights, civil rights, everything is absolutely necessary. Strongest presence of United States, like in the case of Bosnia and Herzegovina during the 1994, 1995, and after that. I think it is absolutely naturally now in the world there are many different crises, international illegal migration, international terrorism, many different things from Middle East, Libya, North Korea, and others. But I think for the stability of our region is absolutely necessary to have on the highest level representative of the President of the United States, and to help, and for the stability, not only our and larger region is very important to help in process peace, in the process of negotiations.
In this regard, you're aware that there's ongoing talks between the Kosovo and Serbia, and you know that the leader of this negotiation is going to be taken over by the EU. Do you think that it's still necessary to be involved on this stage, United States, or to leave it only in the Brussels hand, this issue?
It's excellent I strongly support the Brussels peace process and negotiations strongly, and but I know very well the relations. If the United States is much more successful, would be negotiations in Brussels. Yes.
Thank you. Before I hand over to Nena to ask what she may and to bring the matter to a close before our coffee break, I'd like to express my personal thanks and observe to anyone who is not already a politician, may have another career to go to, whether it's in medicine or the law, how I think honored and flattered they would be in similar circumstances to be described as you were as a rhinoceros. An amazing, but I suspect accurate description at a moment critical to what happened in the development of that peace process. And incidentally, by the way, everybody who doesn't know about it, I should have mentioned earlier, of course, Brčko is still an entirely independent city, but that's another matter. Nena, would you like to do everything except count the minutes after you finish until coffee time? Because we know you can't do 15 very easily.
Wow. Wow. Thank you, Jeffrey. I am on my iPhone and I'm going to try to be very short. And yes, Professor Granić, thank you so much. Our next masterclass will be just for your book. I think 10 days will be about the right amount of time. We will need to go through all topics. So Jeffrey, if I take time, you will forgive me, but I won't, because there is one thing that we did not discuss and you did not mention, and this is that we know that preceding Dayton Agreement, there was an unofficial and still under radar agreement between all major players from Serbia, Bosnia and Herzegovina, and Croatia about strategy that is now known as swap of territories or exchange of territories that actually led to the war positions in the 95. What I'm aiming at is that we had more than enough indications and evidence that Eastern Bosnian territories were, in this sort of negotiations, left, or more or less left to Serbia, while Western Bosnian territory of BiH, but also Croatian territories would be given up by Serbs. Is that something that you, from your position, can confirm, that in 95 there was a general agreement negotiating under sort of auspices of international community that there will be a swap of territories within Bosnia and Herzegovina? On one side, Serb will get Eastern Bosnia, and Bosniak and Croatian forces jointly would liberate Western Bosnia, which would pave the way for giving up by Serbs Republika Srpska Krajina territories in Croatia. Am I correct saying this? Do you have any knowledge about this?
I know very well that one time in the Waldorf Astoria Hotel in New York, Lord Owen asked me for the meeting and proposed me that if we want to reintegrate our territory, that we gave our territory River Sava to Županja, and in Eastern Slavonia condominium, and Prevlaka one part to give Republika Srpska, and territory near Dubrovnik we would get from Republika Srpska, and he proposed me some territorial exchange as a precondition for the peace negotiation, peace agreement. That was from Lord Owen Hotel was Astoria. I refused. I refused to discuss about that. I refused. That's all what I know.
Mm-hmm. So
I didn't heard about it, but everything is possible. Everything is possible, but I didn't know. I knew only what happened, what he proposed me concerning Croatia, what was included a part of the territory of Bosnia and Herzegovina. And that's a situation that I am sure that idea of exchange territory definitely were on the table.
Which year was this meeting in Waldorf Astoria Hotel? Do you remember which year was it? After March 94?
Oh, in my book, yes.
Okay.
Probably 94, but that's in my book.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So another associated question is, when you, if we look into the history and involvement of peace negotiations, the Washington Agreement stands out as a change of paradigm. You know, so you see that something quite different is possible to be achieved. My question to you is, are the negotiations from your side with Silajdžić in Washington preceding Washington Agreement, did you ever discuss the fate of the territories of Republika Srpska Krajina, Serb-held territories in Croatia? Was it connected to your negotiations with Americans?
Okay. When we discuss in Washington about the establishing Federation of Bosnia and Herzegovina, idea was the cantonal arrangement of federation transfer on all part of Bosnia and Herzegovina. That was idea, supported with the United States. But international community chaired by the United States changed this position in June 1995. That was, our idea was model of cantonal arrangement transfer on the whole territory of Bosnia and Herzegovina. Concerning Croatian occupied territory, we know very well precondition was international credibility of Croatia, that Croatia can resolve the problem peacefully or militarily, but international credibility of Croatia. Naturally, the option for us much cheaper was peaceful integration, but Milosevic absolutely was against this idea, against any kind of political agreement. Local Serbs were ready to discuss about electric, water, road, but not about any kind of political agreement. That was the problem.
Nena, you're mute, I think.
Thank you very much.
Not at all. Thank you so much. We kept you too long.
Put it in your program.
No, it was wonderful. Thank you so much for coming. And we hope to see you next year in person in Dubrovnik when situation normalizes. And I think it's on behalf of all our participants now, it was a great, great privilege that we could greet you at this very important anniversary as well, 25 years onwards from your difficult negotiations in Dayton. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
And
no,
coffee break, 14 minutes, takes us to precisely the hour. And we'll all meet you again at either 12 o'clock or 11 o'clock in England. Thank you again, Professor Granić.